Welcome to State of Affairs Zimbabwe, your trusted source for deep political analysis, history, and the untold stories shaping our nation today. Tonight, we take a journey back in time of our beyond modern politics, beyond independence, and into the spiritual and prophetic history of Zimbabwe. We explore a powerful and mysterious subject that has resurfaced in conversations across the country, the 1957 prophecy of Matsibaba Wimbo, and how many believe it connects to the leadership transitions we are witnessing today. This is not just a story. It is a deep dive into belief, history, power, and the unanswered questions surrounding Zimbabwe's future. Back in 1957, during the final years of colonial rule in what was then southern Rhodesia, spiritual movements were gaining strength among African communities. These movements were not just about religion, they were about identity, resistance, and hope. Among the most respected spiritual figures at the time was Matsibaba Wimbo, a man whose followers believed had a divine connection and insight into the future. According to oral accounts passed down through generations, Matsibaba Wimbo made a prophecy that Zimbabwe would one day be free, but that freedom would come with cycles of leadership struggles, internal conflicts, and moments where the nation would stand at a crossroads between renewal and collapse. At the time, such a prophecy may have seemed distant or symbolic, but today, many Zimbabweans are beginning to reflect on those words with renewed interest. The prophecy, as it is often recounted, spoke of leaders who would rise from the liberation struggle, leaders who would initially unite the people but later face divisions within their own ranks. It described a time when those who fought together would begin to distrust each other, and when the struggle for power would shift from fighting colonial rule to fighting for control within the nation itself. Fast forward to modern Zimbabwe, and it is impossible to ignore the parallels many people are drawing. After independence in 1980, Zimbabwe was led by liberation war figures who had fought against colonial rule. The unity that once defined the struggle slowly gave way to political competition, internal factionalism, and power struggles. In recent years, especially following the dramatic events of the 2017 military intervention that led to the resignation of Robert Mugabe, Zimbabwe entered a new phase of leadership transition. The rise of Emmerson Mnangagwa marked a shift that many believed would bring reform and stability. But as time has gone on, new tensions have emerged. We are now seeing increasing reports of divisions within the ruling party, disagreements among senior officials, and speculation about future leadership changes. The dynamics between key figures in government and the military have become a major topic of discussion. Some analysts argue that these developments are purely political, driven by ambition, policy differences, and the natural evolution of power structures. But others, particularly within spiritual and traditional communities, believe there is something deeper at play. They point back to Matsibaba Wimbo's prophecy. According to some interpretations, the prophecy warned of a time when leadership would become fragmented, when trust would break down, and when the nation would face a critical decision point whether to continue on a path of conflict or to seek renewal and unity. One of the most debated aspects of the prophecy is the idea of a divided house. This phrase is often used to describe a situation where those in power are no longer united, where alliances shift, and where loyalty becomes uncertain. In today's Zimbabwe, this idea resonates strongly. There have been reports of tensions between different factions within the ruling establishment. Some officials are said to be positioning themselves for future leadership roles, while others are focused on maintaining the current power structure. The role of the military has also come under scrutiny. Zimbabwe's military has historically played a significant role in political transitions, most notably in 2017. As discussions about future leadership continue, many are watching closely to see how the military positions itself. This brings us back to the prophecy. Matsibaba Wimbo is said to have spoken about a time when those who guard the nation would become kingmakers. While interpretations vary, Many believe this refers to the military's influence in political matters. Another key element of the prophecy is the concept of generational change. It is said that Mansababa Wimbo foresaw a time when a new generation would risen that did not experience the liberation struggle firsthand, but would inherit its consequences. This generation, according to the prophecy, would demand accountability, transparency, and a new direction for the country. Looking at Zimbabwe today, we can clearly see the emergence of this new generation. Young people are becoming more politically active. Social media has given them a platform to express their views, challenge authority, and demand change. Issues such as unemployment, corruption, and economic instability are driving conversations that were once limited to private discussions. This shift is creating pressure on the current leadership. The question now is whether the existing power structures can adapt to these changes, or whether the country will experience another major transition. Some believe that Zimbabwe is approaching a turning point similar to what Matsibaba Wimbo described, a moment where the nation must choose between continuing cycles of conflict or embracing a path of renewal. But what does renewal mean in this context? For some, it means political reform, creating systems that are more transparent, accountable, and inclusive. For others, it means economic transformation, addressing the challenges that have affected millions of Zimbabweans for years. And for many within spiritual communities, renewal is not just political or economic, it is also moral and cultural. It is about returning to values of unity, integrity, and service. Another important aspect of the prophecy is the warning about external influence. Matsibaba Wimbo is believed to have cautioned that foreign powers would continue to play a role in Zimbabwe's affairs, sometimes in ways that could deepen internal divisions. This idea remains highly relevant today, as Zimbabwe navigates relationships with global powers, regional allies, and international institutions. The balance between sovereignty and cooperation is a delicate one. As Zimbabwe seeks investment, support, and partnerships, it must also ensure that its national interests are protected. This is a challenge that many African nations face, and it adds another layer of complexity to leadership decisions. Returning to the present moment, the question many people are asking is simple. Are we witnessing the unfolding of a prophecy, or are we interpreting current events through the lens of history and belief? Skeptics argue that prophecies are often vague and can be applied to many different situations. They caution against reading too much into historical predictions, suggesting that political developments should be analyzed based on evidence and facts. On the other hand, believers argue that there are too many similarities to ignore. They point to the patterns described in the prophecy: unity followed by division, leadership struggles, generational change, and see clear connections to what is happening today. This debate is not new. Throughout history, societies have often turned to prophecy during times of uncertainty. It provides a framework for understanding events, a sense of continuity, and sometimes a source of hope. In Zimbabwe, where spiritual beliefs remain deeply rooted in culture, it is not surprising that Matsibaba Wimbu's prophecy continues to resonate. But beyond belief, there is a practical reality that cannot be ignored. Zimbabwe is at a critical moment. The decisions made today will shape the country's future for years to come. Leadership transitions, whether gradual or sudden, have far-reaching consequences. They affect the economy, governance, international relations, and the daily lives of citizens. This is why it is important to approach this topic with both respect and critical thinking. The prophecy of Matsibaba Wimbu can be seen as a reflection of deeper truths about power, human nature, and the challenges of nation building. Whether one believes in its spiritual origin or not, it raises important questions about leadership, unity, and the direction of the country. As we move forward, it is essential for leaders to prioritize the interests of the nation above personal or factional ambitions. It is also important for citizens to remain engaged, informed, and active in shaping the future. The story of Zimbabwe is still being written, and perhaps in some way, the words spoken in 1957 continue to echo not as a fixed prediction, but as a reminder of the choices that define a nation. Thank you for watching State of Affairs Zimbabwe. Stay informed, stay engaged, and join us as we continue to unpack the stories that matter most.